Well, there you have it, the first non-Red Bull or Ferrari win since Brazil 2022. Lando Norris finished second 8 times and had 15 podiums without winning until now. A DNF in the sprint, but a 16th career F1 podium for him, but more importantly, his first ever win of a Grand Prix. The race, coupled with incidents and penalties galore, was quite the spectacle. Well, here is the result then from the Miami Grand Prix. Well, Lando Norris took his first ever career win, as I say. He was 7.6 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen in second. Then the two Ferrari, Charles Leclerc leading Carlos Sainz home. Then Perez in the second Red Bull home and hosed in fifth. Lewis Hamilton, a decent result for him in sixth. Yuki Tsunoda, how about that, in the RB home in seventh. George Russell eighth. Fernando Alonso 9. And Esteban Ocon in the Alpine getting that solitary point. Not bad for Alpine. Further afield, well, Oscar Piastri had a bit of a nightmare at the end, finishing 13th. And Daniel Ricciardo equally nightmarish after that great sprint result. He finished 15th. Logan Sargent with a DNF. Well, joining me to talk through what we've just seen in Miami, I'm delighted to have from Miami, Charles Bradley. Well, Charles, I think it's fair to say that was a pretty good Grand Prix, wasn't it?
It's great when you see a first-time winner in the flesh winning a track like Miami, the third Miami Grand Prix this year. And we all expected another Max Verstappen domination. I think that's what we were getting. And then suddenly the safety car turned everything upside down. And the thing was that Lando really, really grasped that opportunity.
I was slightly concerned when I was watching it. In fact, I've bitten my fingernails down to the nubs watching that there, particularly on the restart after that safety car, because it looked like for a moment that maybe he got it slightly wrong, but he just kept ahead of Max, didn't he? And got the car home as he had to do. But quite phenomenal, really. He finished 7.5 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. That was a decent haul of seconds. But he also did so well when it comes down to his career as well. His first win, as we say. Let's give some stats, because we always like a stat, don't we? His first career win, that was his 16th podium of his Formula One career. His 110th start. That's the same as Lewis Hamilton raced for McLaren as well. And it kind of looked like a very composed drive from Lando Norris, and I'm sure he ran straight from the car and quickly bought a lottery ticket because all the luck went his way.
Well, he quickly ran, and he ran into all his mechanics in Parc Fermé, didn't he? And did a stage dive. I think it was absolutely amazing. The pace he showed after the safety car restart was unbelievable. He really did leave Max in his wake. He's saying fastest lap after fastest lap. I'm not sure that the McLaren guys could quite believe how good the pace was. Of course, we heard from Max that he was really struggling with his front tyres, couldn't get the car to turn, saying it was a disaster. But Lando just made it look so easy. Just needed the clear air. And one thing that struck me just looking at a replay of the start, actually, obviously Oscar was the McLaren driver who gained the most at the first corner when Sergio did his dive bomb move on the Ferraris in front of him, and it was strange because Lando lost the track position to Oscar. But because he did that, that's why I think they gambled a little bit on the strategy. That's why they ran him so long. And that's when the safety car came out and Kevin Magnussen did his thing. And I think he needs to buy him a beer in Miami tonight.
Yeah, I've got so many questions to ask about Kevin Magnussen et al. Because I tell you what, Kevin Magnussen, which we will come to, I'm sure, he's got to really, really change his way of driving if he's going to stay in Formula One in 2025. That's my thoughts at this stage. But let's stay with Lando Norris for a second and find out what the team have been saying. I mean, Zach Brown always seems to treat him like he was his son, doesn't he, Lando Norris? But what about the other team, the wider team?
It's exactly the right way to describe it, because they've really nurtured his talent, and I think it was very apparent right from the start that he had a lot going for him. Quite a few people have obviously said that Lando maybe should jump ship. Maybe it's time for him to be Max Verstappen's teammate at Red Bull, or jump somewhere else to try and further his career with a more front-running team. But I think the loyalty he's shown to McLaren and I think the love that Zach's shown for him as well. I think, and then the whole team has sort of absolutely opened its arms, welcomed him, and they've all been paid back in their faith in him today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a very, very good drive. He got the luck of the gods shining down on him as well. And it seemed like it was a popular win for the rest of the paddock. There were so many people that came over to congratulate him. Fernando Alonso came across as well, and his good mate Carlos Sainz too. It's nice to see George Russell go over as well and give him a big arm around the shoulder, because George Russell was the last person to win a Grand Prix that wasn't a Ferrari driver or a Red Bull driver. That was 30 Grand Prix ago at Brazil in 2022. So it's quite phenomenal, really. You have to think about how far back we have to go. What did Max say about his weekend then? Max Verstappen came home second, but not a great weekend for him, although I think he'll probably take second on a bad weekend.
Yeah, all weekend he's been complaining about the tyres, and it's one of those situations where you think, oh, he's just having a bit of a moan. He's still on pole position, he's still winning the sprint race, but I think that last stint really did show that the car was struggling. So as soon as he got out of the clean air that you always associate with Max Verstappen, because he always seems to be in the lead, and Max has just been criticising the tyres all weekend, not necessarily because he has a disadvantage, just because of the way it worked with his car or didn't work with his car. He found that they were overheating too readily, and it was a case of if you push these tyres just a little bit, then they just go over an edge, and it's very difficult to bring them back while still doing the lap times that you would wish to do. So I think clean air was really shown by the fact that Lando was able to run away with it at the end. And I was just talking to Alessandro Aluni-Bravi at Sauber, and it was like, our cars today were battling with Daniel Ricciardo. He was fourth yesterday, and today he was nowhere. And it just goes to show that these tyres are just so difficult to get into the window and then stay into the window. And I think that was the root of all Max's problems this weekend.
Yeah, and Sergio Perez, he finished down the order in 5th, and that's just going to reignite the is Sergio Perez good enough for a Red Bull seat in 2025? We haven't got time to discuss the ins and outs of the driver market, of course, but looking a bit further afield, and Logan Sargent, he came up a cropper when a certain Magnussen drove into him. Now, I watched that and I wasn't sure there was going to be any penalty given out at all. I thought maybe it would just go down as race incident, but looking at it, Magnussen got a 10-second penalty. He got 35 seconds in the sprint race. He got 20 seconds in Saudi Arabia. And you look at both Logan Sargent and Kevin Magnussen and you think maybe, just maybe, 2024 is going to be their last season in Formula One.
Yeah, with Kevin, it's like he deserves his own chair in the steward's room. He's in there that often. I caught up with an old mate of mine, Antonio Luzzi, who was the driver's steward today, and he was handing him out penalties like confetti, wasn't he, all through the weekend, if you think back to what happened in the sprint race as well. Yeah, and that's the thing, when you're under pressure, and obviously Kevin's trying to do his best. Nico's leaving the team, Nico Hulkenberg, and when you're under pressure, you're going to do everything to try and help the team, and that's what the root of all Kevin's problems seem to have been, that he's always trying to help the team. We saw it against Lewis very entertainingly on Saturday, and then today less entertainingly because he caused a contact that meant that Logan had quite a big shunt, really. And I feel really sorry for Logan, because it's his home race. He was born just 18 miles, I think, and to go out like that in that fashion was I think it was quite a shame. Yeah, 10th in the sprint race yesterday for Logan Sargent, but it may be. I don't think it provides the answers that people are looking for him and a contract. No one's going to make any mind up right now, but of course they are looking for consistency, and at the moment Logan Sargent is struggling, and Kevin Magnussen, all he's doing is consistently getting penalty points or penalty seconds added to his race, and that's causing a knock-on effect for him and the team. But looking a bit further afield then, there's an ongoing investigation at the moment between Piastri and Carlos Sainz. The result of that collision was Piastri's rear wing broke. Yeah, I was just talking to Fred Vasseur, old friend of mine from F3 days, and I asked him about the incident and what his take on it was, and he pointed to what had happened earlier when Piastri made Carlos run long. There was no penalty called on that one, so he felt it was only fair that there should have been no penalty called in this case. You talk about consistency of stewards' decisions. I was talking to Mike Crack from Aston Martin just before I came up here, and he said that the rules have kind of changed this year. There's different rules of engagement, and you really have to focus on what the stewards are looking for and looking, as fair or foul. and you've got to stay on top of what they're calling and what they're not calling.
One driver a little bit further afield that had mixed fortunes, you mentioned him a little bit earlier on, was Daniel Ricciardo. Now, he had a great sprint race, finished 4th in the sprint race. You think, what? Daniel Ricciardo? And he went over on team radio and was saying, this is where I like racing. I want to be at the sharp end. This is all brilliant. And then, well, in qualifying, it went horribly wrong out in Q1 and didn't really get much further up the grid during the race. So how could his fortunes have changed so dramatically over a pretty short period of time?
Well, remember, he brought a 3-place grid penalty in from China anyway. We have these new Parc Ferme rules now for the sprint races, where you're effectively allowed to bring one setup for the sprint race and then one setup for the Grand Prix also. So what I assume happened there is that they made quite a radical setup change, knowing that they would qualify probably quite far towards the back, perhaps running a low downforce rear wing, a trimmed out rear wing, so they could make progress in the race. And as I said earlier, he ended up racing against Saubers instead of racing against McLarens and Ferraris. So it was quite a change of fortunes for him. But it's yesterday on Saturday was a fantastic reminder of just how popular Daniel is, and when he does well, everyone loves to see him doing a fantastic job and reacts to it. And he was absolutely buzzing after that performance. And I know that when he spoke to Mandy from our team after the qualifying, it was just like, can we just talk about the sprint rather than this and how it's going to go in the race today? So it was definitely two very different days for Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, it certainly was. Now, the final question we'll ask you about is swinging it back round to Red Bull and to Sergio Perez. And I don't want to go on too much about Sergio Perez, but that lock-up at the start, turn 1, overshot, locked up, almost took his teammate and a Ferrari out the picture as well. So what's he saying about it, or is he of the same opinion? Don't talk to me about turn 1, talk to me about the rest of the race.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it was just he just braked too late, didn't he? It was an absolute dive bomb of a move. I think our what we'd have been talking about would have been much higher up the running order, wouldn't it? If he'd taken out Max Verstappen at the first corner, we could have been talking about all sorts of results. It could have been a McLaren 1-2, it could have been a Ferrari 1-2 instead. Sergio, again, driver who's under pressure. He knows he needs to perform. He knows he needs to back up Max at every opportunity. And so far this year, he's been doing a good job. They had so many, 1-2 results. Historically, this is a race he's always excelled at, and led a lot of laps here last year until Max passed him, I think, with 10 laps to go, wasn't it? But that's the thing. When a driver's under pressure and he knows that the Ferrari guys both the Ferrari guys are in the mix. This was always going to be quite a strategic race. With it being only a one stop, it was surprising that the undercut was always going to be a factor. So having 2 Ferraris right around Max could have made it a lot more interesting today. So I think Sergio really wanted to get in among them, and he just almost got in among his teammate, didn't he?
Got in among them, properly in among them. Look, it sounds like the party's starting over there in Miami, Charles, so we shall leave it there. But thank you so much. Go off and have an enjoyable evening this evening. Here we go then. Here's how the championship now looks after round 6 in Miami. Well, Max Verstappen, unsurprisingly, leads the way. 136 points for him. He is ahead of his teammate. Yes, Sergio Perez, the number 2, is in second. Then it's the 2 Ferrari, followed by the 2 McLarens. Then you have a bit of a split. George Russell in 7th, Fernando Alonso in 8th in Aston Martin, Lewis Hamilton in 9th. And Yuki Tsunoda climbing up to 10th place with that great result here today. Lance Stroll in 11th. And then Oliver Behrman still looking pretty decent in 12th in the championship. Looking all the way down there, still a few drivers yet to score. Albon, Zhou Guanyu, Gasly, Bottas and Sargent. When it comes to the constructors, well, Red Bull lead the way by a bit of a decent margin now. It's growing, isn't it? 237 to 189 over Ferrari in second. McLaren in third. They're cementing their position, aren't they, as the third best team in the championship. Mercedes in fourth. Aston Martin in fifth. Well, if you want a more in-depth look at all things Miami and the Grand Prix, then don't forget to check out the Autosport podcast. Also, on the subject of podcasts, keep your eyes open for a brand new one, James Allen on F1. This is a really, really exciting series of podcasts, and it all starts with, well, a sad topic, of course. 30 years on from the awful weekend in Imola where 2 drivers lost their lives. James will focus on the legend that is Ayrton Senna. He and his guests will be talking about the life and the legacy of what was a truly incredible driver. James interviews Manish Pandey, the acclaimed writer of the 2010 documentary Senna, as well as Bianca Senna, Ayrton's niece and CEO of the Senna Institute. That'll be out later this week on the Autosport YouTube channel, also wherever you get your podcasts too. Don't forget the next Grand Prix is in 2 weeks' time from Imola, so we'll bring you all the build-up with the preview episode on the Autosport podcast. We'll also bring you the race review, both this video format and the podcast too. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks for watching.